how did you enjoy your time in Madison? And I guess it's probably the most criticized CrossFit Games in history. What were your thoughts?
Oh, I had a great time. It's obviously a very different experience for me now than it used to be when I was competing, but now the last 2 years, I've gone for the whole week. So I've like taken vacation and just gone out there the whole week. And it's just a fun time to like catch up with people and see people I don't get to see that often. We usually have some friends come in from different parts of the country. I've been trying to record a lot of podcasts while I'm there. So it's just a great time when so many people are in the same place. Yeah, like you said, it was highly criticized. I think that there was the games is kind of always highly criticized. I think it's easy for people watching to criticize the programming or criticize the events or various other things when you're just watching without even knowing everything that's going in behind the scenes. And obviously, going into the games, there was a lot of tension because of all the changes that had been made this season as far as the qualification process and the bigger changes in CrossFit. And so I think there was just a lot of anticipation about what could possibly, what could be criticized, and everything possibly could be criticized would be. I think I love seeing all the country champions, and I'm so glad that that change was put in place. Even talking with some of them, I think there was a lot of people who had the opinion that, well, why would someone travel halfway across the world for this competition if they potentially are only going to be able to do one event? And maybe there's other people who deserve to be at the games, instead of someone because they did better in the open and the sport as developed in certain countries. But I think that's really, I kind of disagree with those arguments, because I think if you want the sport to continue to become more professional and continue to evolve, like on the level of something like the Olympics, you have to have representation from each country. And by doing that, that's the best way to sport in these different countries. So now you can imagine every country that brought a country champion that competed, that maybe was cut after that first event, they're going to be celebrated by their whole country. They're going to go home. They're going to be more motivated than ever to progress and to get better. And I think inspire other people in their country to maybe try CrossFit or try competing in CrossFit. And so I think that is amazing. And you could make the same argument for the Olympics. So I like, the only other sport that I follow besides CrossFit is gymnastics. And in gymnastics, the U.S. is so dominant right now. The last few Olympics, they could take the top 10 girls in the U.S. and they'll place at the Olympics, but there are only more people, and all the other countries get represented. And so I think the same process applies. Like, we have representation from each country, and some are going to be much qualified because the depth and the quality of the athlete is just going to be better. It's more developed in certain places, and I think that just comes with the perfection of the sport. So I thought it was awesome. And I think, again, I compare it back to the Olympics, no different than someone going to the Olympics and doing a race, maybe in swimming or track or something like that, and not making it beyond. But you still get to go and have the experience, and not anyone would pass that up. So I thought it was really, really cool to have so many different countries and really represent the whole global CrossFit community. And I think after this year, we're going to see huge growth in a lot of other countries where maybe it wasn't quite as big.
Yeah, a lot of the criticisms, I guess you're probably someone who's quite well placed to sitting in the middle. You were a CrossFit Games athlete, and now you're very involved in the health space. I guess over the past 6 months with the changes to the website, what are your thoughts on the progression towards CrossFit health? And Greg has been very clear about that now being the focus of CrossFit.
Yeah, well, I think the way that it all happened was sudden, and it was sort of unexpected by a lot of people. And I think that change is very hard for people. And so I think that's part of what made it such a difficult shift. But I think at the core, nothing has really changed about CrossFit's purpose. And I think there's people who love CrossFit and who have been doing it forever. would not disagree with that. I think CrossFit has always been about improving the health and the fitness of the average person who walks in the gym. And most of those people have no aspirations of the CrossFit Games. Yes, they might be inspired by watching the CrossFit Games or be inspired by the athletes and what's possible, but the average person that we are trying to help in CrossFit is never going to compete at the CrossFit Games, and that's our main audience. And so I think these changes, really what they've done is they've really aligned what CrossFit is and what CrossFit is facing out towards the public to align more with that audience's purpose. And really, I don't think it has taken anything away from the games. I think, and maybe the fact that, you know, the CrossFit media department has kind of gone away, and a lot of the games, you know, the regional gone away, but really all that has happened is different people and different organizations are taking over that same role. But I think at the games this year, it felt really very similar to how it's been in past years. I thought the media coverage was fantastic from Morning Chalk Up and other, you know, media outlets that were covering the games. I think that's only going to continue to improve year after year. I know there's still some room for with various, you know, covering the masters and the teens, various other things, but I see it all as a good thing. And I think that it just helps us to, instead of someone, you know, hearing about CrossFit and going to the site and being very overwhelmed because they're seeing a lot of CrossFit Games media, they can start to see more about what CrossFit is all about, start to see people that look more, to see that they can fit in. And the games is still there. It's not going away. It's still an amazing test of fitness. And it's unbelievable what athletes are able to do, what they've been capable of doing, and how amazing they have progressed over the past 10 years. It's just, I mean, it's remarkable to think about, to look back to the, you know, 2007-8 games, and then to look at what the athletes are doing now. It's just unbelievable.
I guess, branching off that, do you think that there's a space for the CrossFit Games to coexist with this push towards health from CrossFit.com?
Oh, absolutely. I think they will always, you know, all important part of the picture. The CrossFit Games is a test and it's a sport. And I think it's just the CrossFit Games has just become more and more of a professional sport. And in doing so, like that these athletes are now distancing themselves from the average person is making the sport more of a professional sport. And I think that will just change maybe a little bit of how we interact with it. If you think about just in general how the sport has evolved, I mean, if you think about 2007-8, that started with people who were just doing CrossFit in their gyms a day, one workout a day, and then they decided, hey, I'm going to sign up for the CrossFit Games, and they went, they competed, and they had a barbecue, and everything was great. And then over time, I mean, even when I first started in 2010, that year, many people were still qualifying to the games on one workout, maybe two workouts in a day, but it was very much something you could do by just going to your box and doing your class and making the amazing progress that you'll make if you stick with the CrossFit prescription. But somewhere in between there, between 2010 and today, it's now become a sport where people are really pushing the boundaries of what we're capable of. And with that has come a lot of training volume and a lot of extra time and focus on recovery. And really it's made it a full-time job, which means that the sport of CrossFit and the training that's required for that looks very, very different from CrossFit at its core, which is the CrossFit that is health and longevity. And so I think that's an important distinction that now to try to make, where these past 5 have been very confusing for people because everyone looks to the athletes and they think that they know what the athletes are doing. So if the athletes are doing 2 or 3 workouts a day, everyone should be doing that. And that's not necessarily the case because we have different goals. So I think it's more of a distinction between CrossFit as a sport versus CrossFit as a methodology. And I do think that about all the time in CrossFit, the continuum is wellness to fitness, and we're all chasing fitness, but what we're really chasing is health, which is our fitness over our lifespan, which is how fit we can be for as many years as possible. And this is something we don't know yet because it's such a young sport, but I have a suspicion that training CrossFit as a sport or training for the CrossFit Games is necessarily the best way to do CrossFit for health, for maximizing your fitness over your lifespan, because I think that you're having to sacrifice areas and training and potentially injuries and doing things to impact your performance, which you're making a conscious decision to do. I don't think that it's the way that everyone should be training if we're really just trying to maximize our health.
I guess, is there a little bit of a missing link then? I guess you look at the garage CrossFitter who maybe used to look up to the Matt Frasers and the Tia Claire Toomey, whereas that might be an undesirable load of fitness. But then we look to CrossFit.com and there's Bob doing dips in his kitchen, whereas, you know, the average athlete might be a little bit further along from that. Is there a missing link that we need to find and bridge the gap?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's true. Those are maybe two extremes. I mean, you could even go more extreme than Bob on the other end, but I think that we will come to a middle ground. I think maybe there's a portrayal of this one extreme right now because we've shifted so far in one direction, and then we'll come back to the middle. I think that we want to be, the thing is that CrossFit is for everyone. And so we should be able to see that there's people just like you, no matter who you are, there's someone that's similar to you that's doing CrossFit. And I think that's what we all want to show people. We certainly don't isolate any person because CrossFit is for everyone. And that's what we've learned. It's infinitely scalable. And we've seen people across that entire sickness, wellness, fitness continuum benefit from doing it.
Where do you see CrossFit in 5 years? You've been in the heart of it since probably the beginning. Where do you see it progressing towards?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, we never can predict. I think it will look very similar to the way it looks today in terms of what's happening at the affiliates. I think that the quality affiliates will continue to get better and better. I think that the affiliates who are really doing it for the right reasons and who are really in it for trying to help, for caring about people, wanting to help people improve their fitness and improve their health, are going to be even more successful, and the people who are maybe not in it for the right are going to get out of it. I think that I would love to see more happening at the affiliates for other areas of besides just fitness. I would love to see more emphasis and focus on nutrition happening at the affiliate level, more emphasis on just other general health behaviors that we know play a huge role, like sleep and stress management. And I think that the games is only going to continue to increase the caliber of the athlete that's there, the production and the professionalization of the sport is going to continue. I'm also really interested in what Greg is doing with CrossFit Health and with some of the legal battles that they're fighting and with the education of the public about some of the problems with our health sciences today. And I hope that that only grows and that we can educate more people both in and outside of medicine, because we all know that our healthcare system here in the US is in big trouble. And really, there's not a lot of hope. There's a lot of people trying to do their best in different ways, but it's such a big system and there's so many powerful forces that are contributing to the problem. And I haven't seen anyone else aside from CrossFit with real power to start making changes, standing up for what's really right. And so I'm excited to see how CrossFit Health progresses and what else CrossFit is able to accomplish in that arena.
Yeah, and especially in 2019, we're making waves, that's for sure.
Yeah. What I wanted to say too, about the games, the cuts. I didn't comment on the cuts. I know people were upset too about the cuts happening and the way the events fell before, how there was not, a strength event until after they cut down to 10 athletes and they cut after a sprinting event. And I look back on that and I think, again, it's very easy to make comments when you're just observing and you're not in it, because everyone has an opinion about how things should be done. But I also think that you have to think about it in how decisions like that will move our whole sport forward. So if it had been flipped and they did the heavy strength event, the 1 rep max, before the cut, and then they did the sprint after the cut, I don't think anyone would have been that upset, or you wouldn't hear the same kind of discussion that you're hearing now about how the events weren't balanced. And I think it just emphasizes that we as a community are very obsessed with weightlifting, and we're very kind of strength biased, which makes sense because it's awesome. So cool to see people lifting heavy weight. But I think that by having the cuts after the sprint, I know that all of those athletes who got cut because of that event are going to be better at sprinting next year. And I know that our whole community is going to start to put more emphasis on sprinting. And you could make the argument that it's just an equally important physical skill to have as heavy 1 rep max weightlifting. It's a different modality. And so I think games, there's something that's surprising. There's something that's unexpected. You can think about the pegboard coming out and how no one knew how to do that. And then the next year, everyone could do it the same way that in the open that people get upset about. Like they put double unders as the event or muscle ups early in the open and people get upset. But how many people get their first muscle up or learn double unders because they're under that pressure? So much of how our whole community has been able to advance the level of fitness of everyone in the CrossFit community and at the games level is because we're constantly being pushed and we're constantly having these little carrots put out in front of us. And I think Dave is really good at sizing up the community and knowing where we're lacking and where we need to be pushed. And he's good at pushing us just in the right amount and in a kind of a reasonable way. And I think this is just another way of pushing us as a community to be more well-rounded.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting now on CrossFit.com. I think in the last week, we've seen 10 by 100 meter sprints. And I know my partner and I, we went down to the park and we did that, and that's not something that if you see that program at the box, you have a lot of CrossFitters who roll their eyes and miss running day, but hopefully that pushes us to pursue it because we saw the games athletes being tested in that way.
It's so true. My box programmed this week, they programmed 6 by 200 meters. And I was thinking, I did it in the morning. I was like, oh, maybe I should just sleep in. I can do this on my own later. But then I went and it was amazing. And I never would have pushed myself that hard if I wasn't chasing other people. I probably honestly never would have done the workout if I was on my own. It was only because of that environment. And so these are the little ways, like that's probably happening in boxes, 15,000 boxes all across the world. And in doing little things like that, we're really changing the fitness of our entire community and helping each other to be more well-rounded and healthier and fitter and all those good things.